Cars reviews with a twist. Hi folks, this is Jan again, your youngtimer car freak. In this series I will show you the cars that I once drove and owned, and I will do it with a bit of a twist. Instead of showing you the real one, I'm going to show you a miniature one of the car that I once drove. I hope you like it. I just thought, let me try something different. And I will do it in completely random order. And in this little video, I'm going to present to you the BMW 5 Series of the E34 variety. That car was introduced by BMW in 1988. And let me try to paint the executive car landscape in Europe at that moment in time. So back in the late 80s, all of the, let's say most of the European car manufacturers were building saloons or cars in the executive class. So Ford had the Scorpio, you had your Opel Omega, Renault 25, Alfa 164, Citroën CX and later the XM. The German dominance of the executive car sector was not really there yet. Of course you had BMW, that's clear, you had Merc, you had Audi, but they were not really dominating the market at that moment. In the UK it was really a sad state of affairs. Jaguar didn't have an executive class saloon at that moment, they only had the big ones. Rover, although they had the 800 series, I think they were plagued heavily by the bad reputation that was built during the British Leyland days. And the Japanese makes had big cars. You had a big Toyota, big Nissans, but they were not yet in the premium makes. Lexus was about to arrive, but Lexus arrived in 89, 90, so this was about a year prior to that. And as I said earlier, the German dominance of that marketplace was not there yet. So anyway, for the upcoming executive in those days, a BMW 5 Series was the car to drive. And believe it or not, I was in those days an upcoming executive. And yes, you guessed it right, I drove a BMW 5 Series. Unfortunately not the touring, I like the touring a lot, but I'll get back to that later on. The E34 range actually ran all the way from the 4-cylinder 518i all the way up to an M5. And the bigger ones, starting with the 520i, had the famous BMW inline 6s, and in the later days of the model series, it was phased out in 1996, the 530 and the 540 actually got the first generation of BMW V8s. Well, not really the first generation. Back in the 50s they already had the V8, but let me say in the modern times. Okay, nice cars. BMW in those days was not really push. If you were in the market, you had the money, or your boss allowed you the money to spend to drive an executive car in those days, and you wanted to go German, and you wanted to go for the premium makes, and I have to say the terminology premium make was not really there at that moment yet. But I think the two premium makes really were BMW and Mercedes. And the big difference was, if you wanted to drive his car, you went to the BMW. If you wanted to be a bit more upmarket, a bit more push, a bit more comfort, it had to be a Merc. Anyway, when you look at it, I like the E34 a lot. I actually prefer it over its successor, the E39. Now the E39 is considered by experts to be the best 5 Series ever. That may very well be, but I think the E34 and actually its predecessors were closer to the BMW purity that you, for example, could find in the famous BMW 2002 TIIs. So it was not really a push car, it was a real driver's car. excellent stuff. And I like the touring because when you look at it, first of all, I think it was one of the first, what is now so very usual lifetime combis. And it has a number of interesting features. When you look at the tailgate, you see it's actually a dual hinged tailgate. It isn't really special, but back in those days in Europe, you hadn't a lot of estates that actually had that feature. But even more exciting, at least to me, was the very large double sunroof. And those large sunroofs are nothing special now. They nowadays are usually out of glass. But back in the 80s, having a car with such a large double sunroof was quite special. This little model one, as you can see, has a light interior. And I have to say that if I look at this one, if I had been able to choose, let's say, the BMW series that I really wanted, I probably would have gone for a touring with a light interior, the BMW alloys, probably not in silver, probably in dark green or in red, but I would never have ever have chosen the saloon, but hey, it was a company car and it was not really my choice. It was sort of there and ready for me, which on the other hand is obviously not a bad thing either. Okay, very nice car, as I already said. If you want to buy one now, I hate to say this, but I think you're already a little bit too late. Oh, just by the way, as you can see, it had the traditional BMW front with the double kidneys, still of a decent size in those days, and double headlights. Well, as I said, very classic BMW, very nice. So let's assume you want to buy one now. As I said, you're a little too late, unfortunately. You can't buy them cheap anymore, certainly not if you want a good one. Don't forget, these cars do rust. All cars out of the late 80s do. So BMWs were better than most, but nevertheless, by now, rust can be a problem. So carefully check for that. The wheel arches, the jacking points, all the, let's say, common points, you should check carefully for rust. If you buy one now, I would always go for one of the inline sixes and a manual one on top of that. The V8s were nice, but I think when you look at the history of BMW, they were most famous for those incredible smooth inline sixes. And to be totally honest, to me it wouldn't matter much whether it was a 520i or a 535i. If money is no object, yeah, it has to be an M5. And if it's really no object, it has to be an M5 Touring. Very rare car these days. Well, even when they were new, very rare cars. You have to bear in mind that in those days, BMW Motorsport more or less hand-built the M5s. It was not like these days when they are really built on the assembly line. An M5 was a very special car. It was for its day incredibly fast, very well built, and horrendously expensive. So that's one of the reasons why they are quite scarce, and if you find one now, it is a big money item. The other things I should pay attention to is in my experience, the interiors are actually not that good. They don't are that durable, especially not the cloth ones. And the problem, as with I would say all cars of those age, finding interior trim is almost next to impossible. Have a look out for oil leaks. It's not a real common issue with them, but they will leak oil. And after all, don't forget, even the youngest ones are now, let me calculate quickly, 24 years old. So with all due respect, they are old cars now. But you can still drive them very well every day. They absolutely have no problem keeping up with modern traffic, and hey, you're driving in a much more distinctive car than any of the modern tin boxes ever will. Okay, I hope you liked the video, I hope you like the car. If you go hunting for one, lots of success to you, have a nice day, and hopefully till the next video. Bye bye!